and I am so excited to be with you as we close out just a huge week for our movement with some really big wins. I saw somebody in the chat saying that they need some inspiration, and this is the call for you. So thank you so much for joining in. And as you can see, a lot of other people are doing right now, type in your name, your hub or where you're calling in from, your pronouns if you so choose. Make sure to direct it to all panelists and attendees. Otherwise, you're sending a lot of messages to me, but no one else is going to see it. So thank you everyone for being here. And before we get started on our call today, I want to invite each of us to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples' land Indigenous peoples whose land we are on. So if you're not sure who that is, would love to have you click on that link that you can see, native-land.ca. And as soon as you know, I invite all of you to drop that into the chat and share the land that you're on. And so if you've participated in something with Sunrise before, you know that this is a general practice that we do. And land acknowledgements are just a simple and powerful way that we can show respect, and a way that we can kind of correct the stories and histories rooted in white supremacy that erase Indigenous people, their history, their culture, and we want to really move towards inviting and honoring the truth about that story. So today I'm in, as I said, East Boston, Massachusetts, on the traditional homeland of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket people. The Massachusetts people were some of the first to engage with white settlers in the 1600s, and some of the first to experience the brutalities of those encounters, who faced like decimation of their populations from disease, forced conversions to Christianity, and so many of the other atrocities that we have heard about. And we also want to talk about this because we want to put to rest this myth of Indigenous extinction. We want to be clear that many of these peoples are very much alive today, that they live in communities just a few miles from where I am, and in cities and towns across Massachusetts and the country and the world. And so I just want to take a moment to honor the past, the presence, and the future presence of the Massachusetts Pawtucket people on this land, and also appreciate their stewardship of their land, of this land, and the injustice and pain of the genocide that has occurred. So I encourage you all to take time to learn more and share more about the history of the Indigenous lands that you live upon. If you want to go ahead and actually drop in anything that you know about those communities in the chat so that we can collectively learn together, would love that as well. Thank you for being here. So we're gonna delve into our call now. And I woke up this morning, just feeling and remembering so vividly a story of why we actually started Sunrise. And in 2015, I had just graduated college, and I remember Bernie Sanders was running his campaign for president of the United States of America. And I was a fossil fuel divestment campaigner at the time. And even though I was so deeply involved in climate work, for those of you who were active and engaged in politics at this time, it sort of felt like being in the climate movement, we were watching the entire presidential campaign through like a glass wall. Like Bernie was out there going in on the fossil fuel industry, calling climate change the greatest existential threat of our lives. But our movement was like not at all set up to help him win and ensure that climate justice was central to our country's politics. And we weren't set up to stop the most dangerous president in the United States history as well. And I remember all I wanted in that moment was to have the ability for myself and for the hundreds of thousands, for the millions of young people around the country who felt the weight of this crisis, to see our politicians act with the same urgency and the same fear and be motivated by the hope that we felt. And I wanted the issues that mattered most to my generation to be front and center in our national conversation. And I know this is not unique to me, like the pain of feeling literally gaslit again and again and again by the knowledge that we were nearing ecological and humanitarian breakdown and our leaders weren't seeing it. But you know what, like in that moment, we were clear together that if we could bring the energy of a youth climate movement into the streets and into the halls of Congress with people like Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, we could totally win. And we believe that if we put out a vision for that better world, that young people together could assemble a movement that could take on the powerful and the wealthy and follow in the footsteps of all great movements to turn what was politically unthinkable and impossible into the politically inevitable. And yesterday, I like actually felt like the movement we have built together, that we have truly made climate action rooted in racial equity and economic prosperity a priority in our politics. Yesterday was a huge movement victory. And I know there is a lot to be done, but we can take a second and just bask in the glory of that because we deserve it. We busted our asses for that. And here's just a bit of what we won, right? We fought and won. Many of these things were not in Biden's policy a year ago, okay? So we won 40% of investments, all federal investments that are made in by the federal government, that 40% of that will go to frontline communities, communities of color and low-income people and tribal nations. We secured a civilian climate corps that is going to employ young people and people of color to do the critical work of averting climate catastrophe. We said that we wanted an office of climate mobilization that could unify and cohere and organize the federal government for a plan for climate action across all federal agencies. We got that. We have an Office of Domestic Climate Policy and a National Climate Task Force that is going to do exactly that, headed up by Gina McCarthy and Ali Zaidi. We have the creation of an Environmental Justice Advisory Committee. We have made sure that the government, which buys billions, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of stuff, that every contract that they make is going to seek to improve labor standards for workers and ensure that they have clean energy standards as well. So this is huge. We are gonna make sure that the power sector, that transportation, that buildings, all of that is actually going to reduce carbon emissions. And so this is just like, if you had told me in 2015 that I would be on this call with hundreds of you and that one of the most badass members of Congress would be here celebrating these victories and talking about where we go next, I would have been like, I hope, but I'm not sure. And I don't know if I would have believed you, but here we are. But you know what, like when stuff was coming out yesterday too, it didn't entirely feel like out of the ordinary, right? This is happening not because Biden woke up one day and was like, I'm gonna be the FDR of this moment. Like, hell no. Like we and so many of our allies and our partners, like we have worked collectively to change the political weather in this country. And that is what you and all of us did. We built a movement. We agitated, we organized, we bird dogged. We were literally a pain in the ass for every single one of these folks coming through every state. I know you were out there asking about the money that they took from the fossil fuel industry, asking what their plan was to stop the climate crisis. We joined ranks with Bernie Sanders and pushed for Bernie Sanders to become president of the United States and the Democratic nominee. But when that didn't happen, we didn't skip a beat. We were out there sounding the alarm to Joe Biden to say young people aren't with you right now, and you need to improve your climate plan. You need to pursue justice at every turn to make sure that that we have a planet and a future for all these young people. And he invited people like me and AOC to be on his task force, and we worked to improve a lot of that, of his climate plan, and we kept the heat up when he won in November after millions of young people turned out. We made sure that his cabinet was filled with climate champions. And here we are today. You know, we showed up in Georgia and we worked alongside brilliant Black and Brown organizers who have been fighting against voter suppression for such a long time and won the Senate. And now I just I want everyone to just take a minute and shout out someone in this chat who helped us get to this point, big or small, whatever it was, making phone calls, planning an action, talking to a neighbor, like whatever you did. Let's see them. Shout out my thank you organizers, Yashvi, Voto Latino, the Baltimore Hub, Sunrise Phone Banks, local hub organizers, postcard makers, the Detroit Action, Georgia Equality. Oh my God, they're coming in so fast, I can't even read them. The Video Network, yes, love the Video Network. My parents who helped write postcards, Sunrise Philly, ACLU, Indigenous organizers, state college organizers. My dad phone banked a lot. Yes, your dad, that's awesome. There's so much. Little brothers, my 80-year-old, I think it's a neighbor who helped make calls, Fire Joel Fridays, social media creators. This is amazing. Indigenous Environmental Network, my abuelitos, my mom who used to be a Republican and then started phone banking for somebody. I'm hoping it was someone we were endorsing. This is awesome, y'all. I'm so, so proud and so grateful to all of you. So this is a huge win, and we also know it's not going to be anywhere near enough. And so the work begins to make sure that this is just step one and day one of the decade of the Green New Deal. And the coming months are going to be our chance to do that, right? Biden and Congress congressional leadership are promising to pass a historic COVID relief, economic recovery legislation, putting climate action at the forefront of that. And our mission is to rally our generation to make sure that they have an undeniable mandate to do that at scale in a way that meets the scope and gravity of this crisis. So we know there are going to be a lot of eyes on the insider game politics. That's how, DC rolls. But our job in these coming months is going to be basically keeping our eyes on the ball and what has worked these past few years, building the movement and shifting the very ground under the feet of politicians in DC. And I believe that we can do it and that we will win. And a lot of time on calls, we spend a lot of time talking about like, okay, what can you do tomorrow? What can you do this week to help us achieve our goals? And this call is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about, we have folks from the political team and our training team to help break down kind of the moment that we're in and share their perspective sort of on what we can expect politically in the upcoming months. And then we're going to finish by sharing what's going to come next for our strategy. And this is one of those messy moments. We don't have it all figured out, but we're in the middle of a process with leaders from across the movement in and outside of Sunrise. And so we're going to talk about the broad strokes of what we're thinking and then talk about how we can all prepare to kick off the campaign in mid-February. So to start us off tonight, I am just humbled and thrilled to introduce the fearless, brilliant Congresswoman from Michigan, Miss Rashida Tlaib, who is going to share her take on what's going on in this country right now and the opportunity we have in the coming months to make history. So let's give some big love to Congresswoman Tlaib.
Hey everyone, I am so happy to be with all of you. Thank you so much for being truth tellers, for just being this incredible movement that just didn't go anywhere. You all really didn't budge, even when those dismissed you all, tried to take away your credibility. You all knew that, again, you had the truth on your side, unlike so many other protesters we've seen in recent weeks and months. But I gotta tell you, we just are getting started. I don't think you all realize just the fact that the door has just now creeped open of the possibility of even more environmental justice initiatives. You all know I represent the beautiful 13th Congressional District in Michigan, where we house the most polluted zip code in the country, 48217, which you all did such a wonderful job during the election season, during the time of highlighting and uplifting this majority Black community that, again, is being completely surrounded by 200 different air permits, corporate polluters. And so Thank you for that. And I want you all to understand, like, the fact that we now have this administration talking about environmental justice through a racial justice lens is incredible. And again, that is the opportunity, that door that's creeping open, of making sure that communities like mine that is saying, hey, we know that Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm has been always talking about, was always talking about how children could not learn if they were hungry. My community has been telling people, trying through a bullhorn, and you all have been able to elevate their voices through your bullhorn, that children can't learn if they don't have clean air. Children can't learn if they don't have access to clean water. The children can't learn when they're completely being intake of all the pollution and toxicity, with allowing, again, no accountability when it comes to our climate. So thank you for all of that work that you all, again, continue to do. Know this. I know you all are seeing the administration there. Please don't sleep on this. This is just, again, the beginning. What is important to understand, and Grace Lee Boggs in Detroit taught me this, y'all. It isn't who's in the White House. It isn't who's in Congress. It is movement work like this that changes our world and our country. You saw it in the civil rights movement. You saw it in the movement to be able to organize in the workplace. We continue to see this movement around climate crisis, around immigration reform, and so many other injustices in our country, economic divide that we see even more prevalent during this pandemic. Is movements like this that continue to be fueled with truth, continue to be fueled with values of understanding that we all deserve to live. We all deserve, no matter our background, we deserve to be seen and heard. And that means clean air, clean water, and to be able to protect our land and our earth. So thank you all so much. On behalf of the 13th District, thank you for giving us hope and being inspired that this is, again, just the beginning. I want to imagine a world with my two boys, my 15-year-old, who literally is constantly talking to me about doing something about the environmental injustices in our community, that we are teaching folks that if we really truly come together from a place of love for our land, love for each other, and understanding we deserve these things. We deserve, again, to be put first before profits for the fossil fuel industry. We deserve to be able to not worry about our children getting asthma or being poisoned with lead, and so many other issues. So thank you again for helping uplift the sense of urgency that was missing in the halls of Congress and with the previous administration. And now, at least, again, you've opened the door by being at the table and demanding environmental justice, and demanding, again, so many of these really important initiatives of not waiting and moving. And so I'm just so happy, and I can't, I hope it's coming off to you to understand that I'm incredibly proud of all of you. As a big sister of the eldest of 14, I want you to know I am so incredibly proud. Thank you for the calls. Thank you again for never giving up on this movement. Oh, and with that, I'm supposed to go to Wally. Wally, thank you. He's coming on board. Wally was about to talk about when the first time we ever met. I'm sure he'll include that in some of his beginning, but thank you. I know from working as an organizer, Wally, this isn't easy work. It can be very defeating sometimes, but I hope you take this moment to really, truly be present and understanding that if not for this movement, if not for the work that you all are doing, we would not have gone this far with the Biden administration. Thank you again so much, everyone. Wally.
Thank you, Congresswoman Tlaib. That was amazing. I feel so inspired. Yes, I will include that. So my name is Wally, he, they pronouns. I'm from the great state of Florida. And the first time I met you was 2018. You came to Gainesville for some random reason at an SJP event. And someone was like, yo, the Congresswoman was going to be here. I was like, nah, stop playing. And you came, and it was so dope. And you're always so inspiring. And thank you so much. Gainesville, Florida. So yes, I'm in the Political and Partnerships Division. Real quick before we go in, let me tell you a story. So a year ago today, I was in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, where I live now, working on the caucus Sunrise. We wanted to make the Green New Deal, this thing that could not be ignored, right? We wanted it to be on the tongue of every presidential candidate's wish list. We wanted it to be on every platform. And I flew in from Florida, and everybody in the movement house was very concerned about Joe Biden's record. And literally, we followed him across the state because we wanted him to be accountable to the movement. We wanted him to do right by us. And I just remember, being away from home for 6 months in a place that I did not know, doing this work, organizing young people to go caucus for a Green New Deal champion. And, I've never seen snow before. I came to Iowa. It was very cold. And we ended up, making climate change matter. We ended up endorsing Senator Sanders, and we won the caucus. But, we know how that ended up when it came to the Democratic nomination, right? Joe Biden ultimately ended up winning. And I personally thought that that was kind of like the end of the road for us. But a magical thing happened. What happened was, not just me and other people in Iowa were following Joe Biden across the state. Other people across the country were also following Joe Biden across the state, asking him questions about climate policy, showing how concerned they were about their future, and hoping that he would listen to us. And he did, right? We have won so much in the past few days. Someone said it best on a call I was on today. He has done more for climate change in his first few days than Barack Obama has done in 2 terms. And that's all because of you, right? And there's still so much work that needs to be done. We're never going to stop fighting, but it feels so validating. All the organizing, all the effort, all the sacrifice that we put in for this victory, whatever the contribution you gave, like Varshney said, phone banking, having a conversation with your peers, your family members, this victory belongs to you. We paid it in full. Like, this was a battle and it was earned. But we still have some things that we need to do. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the first 100 days, right? And why it's critical. So yeah, sit back. We're going to get kind of wonky, but it's going to be some good stuff. And we're going to have some great next steps for y'all. So yeah, take a second to get comfy for this story time. So when FDR stepped into the White House, he had a Senate and a House majority in 1933. The country was in the midst of the Great Depression. The previous president had refused to use the government to care for people, and unemployment, houselessness, and starvation were at an all-time high. Climate change and extra activity farming created massive droughts that created, catastrophic winds, the Great Dust Bowl that killed livestock, crops, and people. This was an environmental disaster known as the Dust Bowl. So FDR and the movement pushed him, my cat, pushed him because they know that they needed him to act rapidly in order to give people relief, as well as create the political movement necessary to launch the New Deal and bring the country out of the Depression. So this is all sounding familiar, right? Yeah, if y'all want to put on in the chat, what are some of the parallels you see between FDR's time in that moment and our time now? Yeah, definitely need for change, fear, inequality, economic recession, a lot of parallels, right? Yeah, so a desperate country and the powerful movements that elected FDR pushed him to commit in his first 100 days to any policy that that a stricken notion in the midst of a stricken world must require. During those 100 days, social movements successfully pressured FDR and Congress to pass 15 major bills and sign almost 100 executive orders that changed the landscape of our country and the lives of everyone living here. Programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps were created that brought jobs to 3 million young people to protect and develop natural resources on public-owned land. So since FDR's time, the first 100 days had been recognized as the period that set the bar for a presidential administration. The best time to push presidents to be ambitious and when presidents have the most influence over Congress. Presidents like Kennedy and LBJ were pushed by the powerful Black liberation and labor movement in the 60s to pass unpresidential civil rights and anti-poverty legislation in the first 100 days. That's why Biden's first 100 days are the most important and why now is the time to push him to be bold. And just like FDR's time, Kennedy and LBJ's time, the country is sick, in trouble, and confused all around. We face resurgent white supremacy and a failing democracy and a global pandemic, mass unemployment and houselessness. And the climate crisis is getting worse and worse by the year. We have experienced so much pain and loss these 4 years. Yeah, Trump is trash and it's been really bad. But we have supported each other through all the pain. We were resilient and we have built a powerful climate movement that helped secure Biden and the Democrats' victory over Trump. Now, during Biden's first 100 days is the time to make big demands and launch the decade of the Green New Deal. This is our decade and our movement is ready. In fact, we have already started with a day of action last week, right after Biden got inaugurated. And we're gonna play a video of some of these cool actions.
The imaginary white moderates that gave the Democrats the House and the Senate and the executive. It was organizers on the ground every day screaming Black Lives Matter, screaming, we need a meaningful answer to the question. The fact of the matter is, it was not the imaginary white moderates that gave the Democrats the House and the Senate and the executive. It was organizers on the ground every day screaming Black Lives Matter, screaming, we need a meaningful answer to the question.
All across America, we are trying to be your partners. We want to work with you. We want to make the case to Joe Manchin. We want to make the case to any Democrat we have to. With our friendships and our labor, we can organize in America where the natural riches of this land are shared with everyone. Except change. We see our power. Our power as friends, as neighbors, as workers. America has woken up to our power.
That was a great video. I actually have never seen it. But yeah, it was organizers on the ground that delivered this victory. It was young people, it was people of color out in the streets. Don't let anyone tell you different. We heard a lot of establishment Democrats blaming Black Lives Matter and a lot of other young people for their losses. That wasn't our fault. If anything, we registered more people to vote. We brought more power and we brought the victory to Joe Biden and the Democrats, especially in Georgia. So they definitely need to step up to the plate, stop making excuses, and not compromise with the Republicans and their coup sympathizing colleagues. Cool. So what are we demanding in the first 100 days? Our first 100 days, our big demands for the Joe Biden administration in the first 100 days is just visionary green recovery. So the green recovery will include monthly $2,000 stimulus checks, which is wildly popular and what we really need during a global pandemic, unemployment insurance, state and local aid, and ban evictions and utilities shut off. All sounds, great. Sounds like common sense. Unfortunately, not a lot of people agree with us. We see that, Congress does not want to pass stimulus. We see they want to give money to bail out corporations like they always have, but we need COVID relief for our communities. So everyone, regardless of immigration status, should have what they need to survive. And we can't move into the decade of the Green New Deal until we stop collective bleeding and we start healing. So we will also, in the Green Recovery, we are fighting for democracy reform, protect and expand the right to vote, end the filibuster, expand the Supreme Court, and DC statehood, and advocating for Puerto Rico self-determination. The filibuster, we really need to get rid of that. That is a arcane, old Jim Crow era tool that is stopping us from getting the Green New Deal with all the meat and substance that our communities deserve. We need to eliminate that. And we already see Republicans and people in state legislatures moving to restrict voting in the communities. You would think that they would want democracy, but that's not the case. We must end the minority rule of our government and permanently shift the balance of power in the United States away from the greedy elites and the white supremacist whipped Republicans. It's time we build a true multiracial democracy that we can pass the whole decade of the Green New Deal and the policies that we need in it. And finally, in the Green Recovery, we are fighting to create good jobs, reverse systemic inequality, and halt the climate crisis in the Green Recovery. And that will include climate clock, decarbonizing America, go big on investment, job guarantee, regardless of citizenship or criminal record, empowering workers, a just transition, indigenous sovereignty, climate action as reparations, and so much more. Yeah, let's get hyped for that in the chat. So for so long, it felt that we've been on the defensive against everything. Now it's time to fight for exactly the world we deserve, to be visionaries about what's possible for our communities. So in the chat, right, what will our world look like in 10 years from now at the end of the decade of the Green New Deal? And yeah, I just wanna, the last piece is like, yeah, it feels really good, validated the past few days, Joe Biden putting these executive actions in, but there's still a lot of fighting that needs to be done. Joe Biden's not our savior. We got us. We know what our communities need. So we need to be in the community. We need to keep advocating. We need to keep organizing. We are clear-eyed about what we are fighting for in this moment. Yeah, and then I'll pass to Griffin to talk about what our movement's role is in this fight.
Thanks so much, Wally. Let's get some love in the chat going for Wally and for how gracefully he took us through that material. Yeah, hey everyone, my name's Griffin. I use he and pronouns. I'm a trainer within the Sunrise movement. And during my time as a leader in Sunrise, I've seen firsthand how young people coming together from across the country can do the unthinkable and win the impossible. I'm thinking about last summer when my senator, Green New Deal champion Ed Markey, was challenged in the Democratic primary by dynasty politician Joe Kennedy III. If you're not from around here, you might not know, but until recently, there's been about 2 things you can count on in Massachusetts. The first is big old snowstorms in the summer, and the second is Kennedy's winning elections. And last summer, this election was looking like it was going to follow in step. I remember seeing the news. Kennedy was up 20 points and a few $1,000,000. And the organizer in me groaned and my heart sagged. And I saw that if business continued as usual, winning this race was going to be impossible. Victory felt so far out of reach. But I was lucky enough to have some incredible leaders in my community and in my networks. And these leaders told me, no, don't give up. Hope is not lost. We can organize right now. One text, one call, it's where it starts. These middle schoolers and these high schoolers, people my age and younger, fighting to keep Ed's career alive and put forward this vision of the Green New Deal, motivating their friends and peers to keep organizing when hope felt really far away. And it's true, business as usual might have let Kennedy win, but these organizers weren't playing by the same old dusty rule book. I remember the relational organizing drives we did to mobilize our friends and families, and seeing some of the most creative social media and political ads, and in my opinion, some of the greatest political memes of all time. And we're building this campaign out of young people being who we really are, right? Funny and sassy and caring and creative, and not playing by the stuffy roles we're told we have to play in order to get political wins. It was electric. And day by day, the whole summer, we organized and took back the race from Kennedy point by point. In early September, our movement defeated a Kennedy in Massachusetts for the first time ever by 11 points. All of these young people coming together from all over the country and all over the state, organizing straight from our hearts. We did the impossible. Here in this call, drop some exclamation points in the chat right now. If you made calls for Ed Markey, if you sent texts, if you did relational organizing and mobilized your friends and your family, and especially if you made or shared or reposted any of those incredible memes. Yeah. And that is just a sliver of our movement's power, right? Our movement's work in support of Ed Markey is just one piece of a much larger picture. We've worked for the past 4 years to create this mandate for transformational action against climate change in the form of a Green New Deal. And we won that mandate. And now we get to shift from setting a mandate into holding an agenda that leads to actual legislation, which Wally just shared with us. And so our movement's role right now is to popularize the green recovery as the recovery pathway for our country and make it non-negotiable that Congress and President Biden champion and pass major federal legislation in the first 100 days for green infrastructure, green jobs, and long-term economic recovery that's ambitious and rooted in racial and economic justice that can serve as the beginning of the true Green New Deal. And to be clear, our role right now, it's not to get too deep in the weeds of each bill. That's not where we're most powerful. Instead, our role at Sunrise is to continue to build people power and political power to change the common sense of the country and force politicians to move in alignment with that same common sense. In February, just a couple weeks, we'll be launching a new national campaign to do just that. And this campaign is going to require tireless work in our communities to build this tidal wave, a tidal wave of popular support for the Green New Deal and make that power felt in the halls of Congress, including everything from flooding the voicemails of senators' offices to demonstrating in legislative offices. And at the same time, we got to be growing our people power by talking to more and more of our friends and family about why this moment is so urgent and bring them into the fight by getting them to take action with us. Our movement is winning. We're winning, but there's still a long road ahead. And it's not enough to just win elections, right? If those elected don't actually fight for everyday people, it's not enough to win elections. We got to make sure that they fight, hold them accountable. Sunrise Movement, along with our allies, we're determined to make sure working people and a green economy are at the forefront of President Biden's first 100 days. Let's get some more exclamation points if you're ready to build this vision with us. Me too. Oh, incredible. So this is broadly how we see our role in the fight for a green recovery. But there's so much more that we're excited to share with you in the coming weeks. And so we're still working with hub leaders across the movement to define and refine and strengthen our strategy. And on February 18th, we'll be officially launching our campaign, and we need you there. So I'm passing it over to Lauren to share more about how you can be a part of this fight.
Thanks so much, Griffin. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I use she, her pronouns, and I work on Sunrise's national trainings team. And I'm here right now to talk about the launch of our movement's next campaign to win a green recovery. So right now, we are in a historic moment of opportunity, the kind that only comes around once every few decades. Because since our movement started 4 years ago, we have been fighting nonstop to win a Green New Deal that can stop the climate crisis and give our generation a livable future. And now we are actually on the verge of winning that. So like Varshini was talking about at the top of this call with all the things that we have won, yeah, we just had some major wins this week. And Biden's executive actions just yesterday have actually started building some key pillars of the Green New Deal into law. So we are already winning. And the Green New Deal isn't a far off dream anymore. It's right at our fingertips. So our mission now is to seize this momentum that has started and keep it going through these first 100 days and all the way until we've won. And so right now, Joe Biden and congressional leaders have promised to pass historic COVID relief and economic recovery legislation and put climate action at the forefront. So they've said that they're intending to do things really in line with the green recovery that we want. And what we need to do now is to rally our generation to hold them accountable to following through on these promises and doing so at a scale that meets the gravity of this crisis. Because time is ticking and people are dying, and we don't have another 4 years to wait for politicians in DC to get their act together. We need them to act now. So on Thursday, February 18th, we will be launching our Green New Deal Year One campaign and announcing our strategy for how we are going to win for green recovery. And so we'll be having a live streamed event that anyone anywhere can tune into. And we really want you all to be there. So here's the link to sign up to host a Green New Deal Year One campaign launch watch party. And I'll tell you a little more about what that looks like. So at the launch party, we're going to be laying out our full strategy for how we can win a green recovery in these first 100 days. And in that strategy, we will have an essential role for you to play. And you'll walk away with a clear set of action steps that you can take to help us seize this moment and make sure that Biden and Congress take the bold action that we need to build a green recovery and stop the twin crises of COVID and the climate crisis. And it's crucial that we start this next phase of our work with support from the whole movement. We need you to be there. So that's why I'm asking you to sign up right now to host a campaign launch watch party. And hosting a watch party is super easy. You can do it with your pod in your house, or you can do it with a group of friends online. All you need to do is think of some friends that you want to invite and reach out to them. And then watch the Green New Deal Year One campaign launch live stream together. And we'll support you to set up the rest. So we'll have agendas for you to follow and folks to coach you through if you have any questions. So no matter who you are, even if you're brand new to Sunrise, in fact, honestly, maybe even especially if you're brand new to Sunrise, we need you to host a campaign launch watch party, because our power comes from the people in our movement. And our people power is what's gotten us this far into these wins that we're having right now. And it's only going to be launching this next phase of our work with all the people power that this movement can bring that will be able to win the true green recovery that we need. So please sign up right now. The link is in the chat. And yeah, can you put a plus in the chat if you have signed up or are planning to sign up right now? Wow, yes, so many pluses. I love seeing these speed by. This is so much momentum. Thank you. So if you're a hub leader and wondering how to engage with these launch parties, I want to let you know that we're going to have a quick leaders follow-up call right after this to talk through some ideas of how you can use the watch parties to grow your hub's power and answer any questions that you might have. So if you are a hub leader wanting to come and have a little chat about this, then you can join us on this Zoom that we're going to be dropping in the chat. And yeah, for all of you here, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This has been an incredible week for our movement. Week 1 of the Biden presidency, and we have already won so much. So I'm really excited to see how much further we can go together, and to see you all in just a couple weeks at our full campaign launch. So I hope you'll be there. I hope you'll bring your friends, and together we can win a green recovery. So thanks so much, everyone.